Hi, I'm Stephanie Dyer, and this is Escape Into a Cause, the podcast about the people and nonprofits making Austin stronger and more connected and helping people like you and me figure out how we can be part of that work. This week in Topics That Matter, Courtney and I take on the I can't make a difference dilemma. Have you ever thought, what does it matter if I give or I volunteer? My time or money feels so small against such big problems. You are not alone. Psychologists call this the drop in the bucket effect. When problems feel too big and our contributions feel too small, so we check out. It's that state where we feel powerless and effective and convince ourselves it's just not worth showing up. But what happens when we flip the script and realize even the smallest contribution, $5, one volunteer shift, one conversation, how does that ripple out? We will dig into that. Then I sit down with Reverend Carrie Graham, founder of the Church Lab. Growing up, most of us are told, do not talk about religion, politics, or money. But what if you're searching for meaning, or you want a space to have thoughtful, respectful conversations about life and spirituality? That's where the Church Lab comes in. Their dialogues have welcomed Protestants, Catholics, Latter-day Saints, Muslims, Jews, pagans, atheists, conservatives, liberals. Really everyone. Whoever you are, you're welcome there. And in a time when America feels more divided than ever, the need for bridge building is clear. Whether you're interested in growing spiritually or you just want the tools to have a calmer conversation with your extended family next Christmas, I think you'll enjoy this one. I hope you do.
Hi, Steph.
Hi, Courtney.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I'm ready for it to get cooler outside.
Me too.
Man, I feel like we had a pretty easy June and July.
We had an easy summer.
And then August came on with a revenge.
I know.
And it was 102 yesterday, and it's September.
A true Texan's dream is to have enough money to have a second home where you can escape.
I know.
Cedar season, I would escape, and I'd escape the summer.
Well, we have cedar trees between our house that we cut down.
I know. I was
Did
so
that help?
happy when you did that. Did you know that there's a cedar, I think I've told you this before, there's a cedar club or something. I don't know if it's just in Austin or Central Texas, but I don't know what their exact club is, but they think cedar trees are terrible.
They are. They're actually really bad. I have friends who own a ranch, and they get paid by the government to cut down cedar trees because obviously they're bad for allergies, but apparently cedar trees take all of the water out of the ground and the soil. And so they're actually very terrible for lots of reasons. And so they get paid by how many cedar trees that get cut down.
Didn't our neighbor get in trouble for cutting hers down? Wasn't that a cedar tree?
It was a cedar tree, that funky one. I know. And then, City of Austin and their trees, it's a special relationship.
Come on. I will go plant a new tree for every cedar tree I destroy.
Yeah, we had to report those ones. We had to get permission to cut down those cedar trees on our property.
How did they approve it?
I mean, you have to go through the city. And then there were certain trees that we couldn't cut down because of the width of their trunks. But yeah, even for those wimpy, skinny little cedar trees, we had to get permission.
They're ugly. They're really ugly. Give me terrible allergies.
And they take the water out of the soil from all the other plants and trees. Who knew?
Oh, okay.
Cedar trees are top. Today we'll be talking about, cedar trees.
I love how this is a good segue. Today we're escaping into the Church Lab, which has the BridgeBuilders Lab, where peace building is the mission. No religious affiliation required. They equip people across our community with tools for dialogue and bridge building, fostering empathy, understanding, and connection in our sometimes divided world.
Sometimes divided.
Oh, yeah.
Man, we need that in our world.
Yeah.
This is really fascinating.
Reverend Carrie was amazing, and you'll love it because it just speaks volumes of today's world with politics, religion, race, policy.
Can't wait.
Yeah,
I'm excited.
It's a great interview. And I just wanted to keep talking about how do we keep this dialogue open? And it's
going
so important.
And share it with others 100%.
Even if you don't think the same thing, having those peace building tools is so important.
Do you know how many issues, wars that would eradicate?
Yeah. They need Reverend Carrie.
Yes.
Okay, so excited to dive into that. But first, we'll dive into the I can't make a difference dilemma.
Oh.
I mean, there's so many cedar trees. Can we really make a difference if we cut a few down?
I mean, this is a great point. No, truly. Yeah. I love the metaphor. Let's go with it. I
So-
can't really make a difference. Oh.
Yeah, but I think some people really do feel like this. They go, my
Yeah.
dollar doesn't matter. My hour of volunteer service doesn't matter.
Totally.
The problem is too big. You look at climate change and it seems overwhelming.
Yes.
How do I fix that? My
Yes.
one extra item in the recycle bin is not going to matter,
Yeah.
right? So people start getting into this mindset of it just doesn't matter.
It just doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah. I think you could look at it from a lot of, is it an excuse? Maybe. Or, and I appreciate that you call it like the dilemma, people who have not analysis paralysis, but when they're thinking, and especially if they have limited time, limited treasure, limited resources, that there's an expiration on those things. And by choosing, it's the ROI, right? By choosing to invest any of that in one thing and not knowing the impact it's going to make or seeing it directly, or it's a drop in the bucket, right? Like they may choose to say, yeah, that's not worth it. The ROI is not there. The limited resources that I have, not worth it. I'm just going to keep it. And obviously the worry is that if enough people think that, then in aggregate, nobody will do anything. We'll all be at a standstill.
Or if we all thought that we can make a difference, it would make a huge difference.
It would make a huge difference.
Have you heard of the starfish parable?
No.
The starfish parable.
Is this the starfish on the beach?
Yes.
Yes.
So like,
but remind me.
I'm gonna just read
Someone's
it because
walking,
it's better.
right?
Yes.
Is
the
there
man
a bucket?
Well,
No, there's not a bucket.
there might be in one of these. I
Let's
don't know.
put a
Maybe I
bucket.
got the
Okay.
shortened version.
I'm going to stop interrupting you.
A man is walking along a beach littered with
Yes.
starfish that have washed ashore. He sees a young boy picking them up one by one.
Yes.
And the man says, why bother? There are miles of beach and hundreds of starfish. You cannot possibly make a difference. The boy picks up another starfish, tosses it in the waves, and replies, I made a difference to that one.
That's right.
I love
Isn't
that parable.
lovely? There's so many sayings and famous quotes like one step, right? It just takes one step to start change. And one act of kindness triggers another act of kindness.
You're getting onto the ripple effect.
Oh, tell me about the ripple effect.
The ripple effect is just, even nonprofits, they can't really quantify the impact that they've made because, for example, say a foster child receives benefit from them, and then they go and raise a family and move on to life and have an impact on friends and family. You don't know how many people they're impacting that you impacted that one life.
Yes.
So the ripple effect is I do something kind for them. They may do something kind for the next person and so on. And you know what I also like to think, just for those that are maybe more business minded and can't really
Wrap their heads around.
Yeah. The way that I look at it is I think of companies like Netflix. It blows my mind. Their standard subscription is $18 a month, yet they have $39 billion in revenue. So if you think about that for a minute, so $18 a month, $39 billion in revenue.
And recurring revenue. It's
In
subscription.
recurring revenue, $39 billion. And primarily driven by subscriptions, 90%
Totally.
plus of subscriptions, a small percentage of strategic partnerships. $18 a month doesn't seem like much.
No, but
So-
it amounted to 39 billion. Isn't that crazy? That many people. That's a great analogy.
It's a great example of how that little reoccurring donation,
Yes. If that many people gave $18 a month, what it could be. I know.
it adds up. And
does add up.
these nonprofits, they need those reoccurring donations to
Absolutely.
sustain their work, to plan, to budget.
Yes.
I had one, I loved Hungry Souls. Bree reached out to me and she's like, I know we got at least one reoccurring donor of $150 a month. And so it was just so sweet of her reaching out, but like, that's how excited she was.
It matters. I can't remember which nonprofit. I don't think I was on the board, but I think I was just talking to the ED or something. And most nonprofits recognize major donors, major gifts, right? Like they're the ones who get to go on the stage. They're the ones who get mentioned in the newsletter. Like these are significant contributions. But this nonprofit did something really cool where in the same breath, they were also recognizing those who were giving monthly. And I said, at a certain threshold, and they go, some of them are $5. But in the same breath with someone who is donating $1 million to rename the wing of the children, like, because they wanted to acknowledge that person can't give $1 million, but what they can give is $5 every month, and they deserve as much recognition. It's like, that is so cool. And obviously they didn't say they're giving five. They just said, this is a list of donors, and we want you to stand up and come across the stage if you have contributed to monthly giving to us. And so
I love that.
isn't that cool? That's $60 a year and still.
We can see the $18 a month. It contributes to a $39 billion top line for Netflix.
Exactly. But I also love the ripple effect, and something that, a visual that will always be in my mind. Junior League of Austin has their annual Coats for Kids event, which I think will be 39 years this year, where they give out over 35,000 coats to children in Central Texas. And it used to be at Palmer Event Center. And then we built the Community Impact Center, and we're like, hey, we can actually save on costs, give more coats, and we do it out of our headquarters at the Community Impact Center. But when it was at Palmer Event Center, the recipients actually lined up around the building in blankets, waiting for their coats. A child came in with a coat on, which again was unusual because most of these people don't have coats. He had outgrown it though. He had received it the year before, and he was giving it back. This was his parents obviously instilled in him, and you could see them talking to them. And this coat came from here. Another person could enjoy this coat, and he takes it off of his back, puts it into the recipient bin, and takes a new coat. It was just this moment of, first off, amazing parents to talk about the importance of giving, and that this child wanted to be a part of the solution and be a part of the giving. It's a very cool story.
It reminds me of the Givers and Takers free cycle, where they started recognizing that the people that came in and just to take started giving back.
Yes.
Yeah, I really like that story.
Yeah. And so I think every act matters, and you may not see it and you may not understand the magnitude, but no one knew that when cleaning out their closet, they would give a coat that a child would put on and choose to give back because they now know it's important to do that. Yeah.
And that shows that just giving a coat to that one child, he will go on in life thinking, I'm going to give.
Yeah.
So sometimes we talk about that immediate need versus long-term need, but that immediate need is also having that ripple effect.
Yeah. Big brothers, same thing. Those who have had a big brother going back and volunteering as a big brother, that's amazing.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. One thing I also love is Amplify Austin, because it can be a ton of small donations.
Yes.
And overnight, it's $10 million.
That's right. Which is so cool, right? That the city of Austin, that's a great way, and appropriately named. They're amplifying donations, small donations into one major contribution. That's $10 million into the city of Austin. That's really cool.
Yeah. And I love what they're doing. Okay. Thanks, Courtney.
Thanks, Steph.
We'll be right back. Escape into a Cause is sponsored by Nightlight Insurance Agency. You know how a nightlight gives you comfort and peace of mind in the dark? That's exactly what Nightlight aims to do. Guide you through life's uncertainties with personalized insurance for your home, auto, business, and more. Nightlight Insurance strives to provide its clients the best coverage at the best price without sacrificing on customer service. Here's what one client had to say. Nightlight was able to lower our car insurance significantly, answered all our questions, and returned our calls promptly. Very professional, would highly recommend. So it's no surprise Nightlight has a 5-star rating on Google. Nightlight also makes this podcast possible by covering production costs so all other sponsorship dollars and gifts can go directly to nonprofits and volunteers. And as part of their mission to give back, Nightlight proudly donates $1,000 to every nonprofit we interview. If you are a sponsor interested in giving back to our podcast, please find us on social media and let us know. Nightlight is an agency focused on personalized service and giving back. See how much you could save and how good it feels to have peace of mind by visiting nightlightinsurance.com. We're escaping into the church lab, and I have Reverend Carrie Graham. Hi, Carrie.
Hi, it's so nice to be here.
It's nice to have you. I'm really excited to dive into it. So what does the church lab do?
The Church Lab does a lot of things, but what it really comes down to is that we are in service of the future of faith practice. So what I mean by that, and oftentimes I'll refer to the Church Lab, by the way, as TCL for short. In the last several decades, more and more people are sprinting away from religious institutions. But there's a lot of good data that says folks have timeless, intergenerational, multicultural, you name it. Everybody in the world has enduring questions about meaning, have existential crises, want to know about meaning and purpose, whatever that might need to look like for them. we have less and less spaces where people are being responsive, that feel safe, that feel like, oh, this is my space to have that community to ask those questions. So the Church Lab is all about experimenting with what spaces are effective to invite all people in so everyone has a way to grapple with those big questions about our lives. There are three main ways that this kind of plays out for our mission, and it also is the way we've evolved over time. So first of all, I've been facilitating interreligious dialogues for 18 years. The Church Lab's 12 years old. So what I found even before we launched is that dialogue is a really amazing vehicle for spiritual formation that applies to everyone, no matter their belief system, right? Christian, atheist, agnostic, Baha'i, spiritual but not religious, you name it. And so we set up long-term small group dialogues that allow people to spiritually grow by connecting with and having a place for these questions. That's our main experiment. But we recognize that's not the only experiment that's worth looking into to create these spaces. So the second main thing that we do is we help other people who want to be innovative in this space also. Sometimes that looks like helping faith leaders. We do cohorts for 3 years at a time, trying to walk alongside faith leaders who maybe decided to stay in the traditional religious environment, but they got to figure out what to do there just as much as anywhere else. So they need support. That's a really tough job. They need partnership. They need ways to be equipped to innovate. Then we've got people who have bid farewell to traditional religion, but they're wonderful faith leaders, and they are out there in the Wild West experimenting with all kinds of super interesting things.
Can you tell me what that looks like? Do they just believe in something completely different? Or is it like the Catholic Church type of infrastructure? Do you know what I'm saying?
Totally.
Is it the institution or is it the beliefs?
For this particular example, it's the institution, but it could be either, hypothetically. So to give you an example, the people who are in our cohorts who are in more traditional spaces, they're like pastors of churches, and usually we work with Protestant faith leaders in our cohorts. So they're in some kind of church environment. But for instance, in our mini grant program, we've worked with, for example, a guy named Ryan Cagle, who's in rural Alabama. Ryan has the same master's degrees that any given church pastor would have, but he has a really cool experiment called Roll for Spirituality. He's really into Dungeons and Dragons. He's really into LARP. He's really into all that kind of stuff. So what he's done is he, as a spiritual director, has created games that are meant for spiritual growth. They're role play games that are about the spiritual journey. So those are also accessible to people of any belief system, even though his particular faith tradition is Christianity. I think his main partner is a rabbi. So it can be either, it can be both.
Yeah, that's interesting because you said Alabama. So y'all are headquartered here in Austin, but you serve a lot of people remotely. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah. We have in-person anchored activities in Austin. A lot of the faith leaders we work with, it is in-person work. It's in Central Texas, but not entirely. Even for faith leaders we work with, sometimes they're in other states. Our dialogue group and most of any of our other offerings happen all across the country because they're all hybrid events. So you can come in person if you're local, but people from all over the place come. Even right now, we have folks from Mexico and South Korea who are joining us. So it's really just a matter of matching the time zone more than the geographic location.
Yeah. Okay, great. So we've got dialogues, we've got workshops.
So the third thing is exactly perfect segue. The most obvious connecting point is that we're trying to address polarization with our workshops and trainings. And the reason why we're doing that is because most people don't hear the word dialogue and think, oh, that's primarily for spiritual formation. We know that dialogue is at its core a peace-building activity. And I've seen this over 18 years of personal facilitation too. As Church Lab has evolved and helped people spiritually grow while they're building bridges with other people with whom they have massive differences, we've been gaining tools that have just been piling up. There are people in the community who don't care to come to a dialogue, but their friendships are suffering. Their families are being ripped apart. They're not sure how to build community in a fragmented society. They're getting into trouble online all the time. Just, we could go on and on. Everybody knows the pain from polarization right now. So we have started using BridgeBuilders Lab as a name that says, hey, we're not trying to convert you, but this is stuff that we do. These are workshops and trainings we do, just meant to help people navigate division.
And that's division for anything. I think most people can relate to a Thanksgiving dinner, and whether it's religion or politics or just anything, it's amazing how split we can be when we were brought up in the same household.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thanksgiving tables is when we start to head toward November, it's one of our biggest questions is, what am I going to do at Thanksgiving? So we have workshops about navigating division. We have trainings for people with a little or no or a lot experience with facilitation. So holding space for people who need to navigate division. And this might be like, sometimes we'll have people work with us who they just bring their staff from a workplace. How do we talk to each other better? Or it might be leaders of organizations, just as much as people who come and say, my dad's not talking to me and it's killing me. What do I do? Any and all of those things, like you're saying, are so resonant with people right now. And so we feel responsible, if we're sitting on these tools, to try to offer them to as many people as can use them and not have a requirement. Like, as long as you're coming to talk about faith, that would be great. And this is something we can offer everybody at a really vital time to try to do so.
Religion is never going to stop being the conversation, even if you're an atheist. You're going to run into religious conversations your entire life. So no matter what you follow or what you believe, these are good tools to use.
Absolutely. And when we talk about BridgeBuilders Lab, or we're speaking with a workplace where it may not be appropriate to make it an interreligious dialogue outright, how we make meaning, how we understand purpose, whether that's the way we were brought up in our childhood or our cultural background or the zip code we went to school in. There are so many things that form how we understand life and the undercurrents we bring into a conversation where there is tension. And so it's certainly not only possible, but important in a more secular workspace to be able to find, how do we get to the core of this? Religion is a really obvious way to do that in some settings, because religion is about meaning making, spirituality is about meaning making, but all of these other factors are always there too.
Yeah, those factors I think are very prevalent, especially in Texas. How did you grow up? Did you grow up Christian?
I did grow up Christian.
Okay.
I'm from Southeast Texas, from a refinery town.
Okay, there you go. I grew up in a divorced household where my mom went to a Baptist church and my dad went to a Catholic church. So
Interesting.
yes, I got to see both.
Yeah.
And then I married a Jewish man.
Nice.
And I've always found it fascinating that in spaces like Texas, kind of those social currents that you're talking about, or those currents from your background and your past experiences. And one thing I've noticed is people's behavior, if you were to say, I'm atheist, I'm agnostic, or I'm Muslim, might come off a little different to people in Texas than if you say you're Christian or Jewish, which I have found that to be so interesting, that Christians are so accepting of Jews compared to other religions because they don't believe in the same, and so anyway, there's nothing really to comment other than my interest in this. It's become almost like a cultural phenomenon.
You're hitting on something so good. I'm just starting to talk more and more about this when people bring me in for classes or conferences or things, that the threads, and the threads are very interesting in Texas, the threads of theology, so theology, faith, practice, religion, culture, politics, class, they and more different identity markers we have, they weave together. They don't exist in silos. And so the way that we end up building understanding of each other is not, this is going to sound like a leap for a second, but it's not as simple as saying, please read this article that I read, I emailed it to you, which is what many of us are like, if they just had the right information.
We have so much information in front of us. We know that more information doesn't make us all aligned.
Yes,
yeah,
that's right. All these other factors are always at play. And so what we talk about at some of our trainings is what it means to understand building bridges as different paradigms, different frameworks, different worldviews, and that we're entering into complex human lives where we all contradict ourselves. We're not looking to like do a gotcha with anyone, because when we play that game, we all lose eventually, right? But we're looking to really understand the texture and the framework of someone's world. It's more of a multicultural rather than an informational conversation. Does that make sense?
It does.
So that takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of trust building and connection. But when people start to build those bridges of understanding, it's an enduring type of change. It's transformational change, as opposed to, oh, we had a nice debate about this topic or a terrible debate about this topic.
And I'm sure you experience and witness both.
Yes, I've been facilitating a long time. Sometimes I've been witness to destructive conversations, but the beauty of dialogue is that you set up a structure for it before it begins that creates a really safe space. I talk a lot about the preventive medicine of dialogue behavior. There are particular ways to walk into a dialogue that safeguards against those nightmares, that keeps people in a posture of seeking to understand before being understood, as the prayer of St. Francis of Assisi or Stephen Covey say. But that's a posture that covers a lot of ground when we're peace building.
I really like that. I just listened on NPR a couple months ago. Democracy Works on NPR. And I don't know if you've heard of Jonathan, is it Rauch? Have you heard of him?
I don't know.
Okay, Jonathan Rauch. He's a Jewish gay atheist that believes that America needs Christianity more than ever to save democracy. Anyway, it was just a really
Very
interesting listen.
Yes.
And he, through it all, will say, I am not Christian, do not believe. So it's just politics, religion, class. I just think it was such a great call out, and a great takeaway is that it's all intermingled and it affects everything.
And I think that can become intimidating to people when we think about dialogue, like, okay, I need to know everything about all these strands and how do I keep it all together? And the good news about that is dialogue is about letting every human be under construction. If the idea is that we're all works in progress, that a dialogue, to use Christian language, is a very grace-filled room. A dialogue is where we come from who we are, as we are, where we are. We speak with the words that are familiar to us, and we don't have to worry about censoring ourselves, or am I going to screw everything up, or because everyone is lending everybody else the room to be as they are and to try to see and learn from everyone else in the room. We often talk about when you go into a dialogue, so often people start the dialogue process, and it is a process. It's a long-term process. People will come in and go, I'll be really nice. And eventually they'll see that I have all the good articles. And over time, they will, come out of their like pleasant naivete or whatever, right? But the truth is, when we're able to go in with a posture where everybody else in the room is our teacher and none of us have an agenda for what happens in the conversation, it's amazing to see what unfolds when nobody gets to decide how it goes. It's incredible.
Yeah, beautiful. Do you walk into a room knowing that you have a different opinion and going, my opinion's right? Or you think it's a fact, right? You're like, this isn't an opinion, this is a fact. And the other person has different facts, right?
Yeah.
I really do like that. I believe in everyone is a teacher, right, around you. And I love just understanding that everyone is a work in progress. Everyone is under construction. And social media does not give you that grace.
No, this is the soundbite systems and algorithms and outrage mechanisms of social media are really in so many ways the opposite of the type of conversation I'm talking about. Because when we go into a dialogue, nobody's asking you to change your mind. No one's asking you to not have conviction. It's the opposite. Be fully who you are. And what if we're so much deeper than sound bites, that we're going to meet for weeks and months and years on end, maybe, before we go, oh, I see how this person came to where they are, and I get it. Maybe my mind has changed in one way or another, usually a surprising way, probably not the way I initially thought, and maybe it hasn't. But that's not the point. The point of peace building is not to say we all have to agree at the end. So I talk a lot about what is the point of dialogue in 2025. Plenty of people are in a place, including myself on some days, where it's like the world is on fire, everything is broken, talk is cheap, who needs talk? And there is a myth to the idea that dialogue is cheap in the same way that phrase goes, talk is cheap. Because the truth is that dialogue is transformative and it changes us as individuals thoroughly, and then it subsequently changes our community. When we decide to posture ourselves in this very countercultural way for 2 hours at a time, and we start to see a different kind of perspective emerge from everyone involved, the way we go out into the world, the way that our workplaces function, the way that our friendships function. I've talked with people who said their marriages have been changed, their relationships with their kids have changed because of the skills they carry out just organically from practicing this. Dialogue, then, if it changes us as individuals, becomes a vehicle for community change. Like, it is its own activism. I believe strongly that dialogue is not a peripheral issue right now, or peripheral solution, rather. I believe that dialogue addresses a root cause of every justice and equity issue we have among us, and there are plenty. The reason why I believe that is because if we are both individually changed in a meaningful way, and then we go, say, to fight for our cause, when we fight for that cause, what we're hoping for is that, whether it's policy or social sentiment, that we're going to move the needle, that we're going to reach a critical enough mass to make progress, to make that change culturally, politically. In order to do that, if I stay on the carousel of escalation, what's going to happen is further fragmentation of the community, further destabilization, more tribalism, more frustration, more lines in the sand. And boy, do I understand the impulse to do that. What happens instead when we lean into more dialogical behavior is that we show up in our communities and we work for our causes with the reality of our neighbors in mind. A lot of times I talk about dialogue as dialogue is loving the reality of our neighbors rather than who we wish they were. When we bring genuine care to their perspectives, even as we work for our cause, we speak of it differently and we work for it differently. And we invite more of a critical mass and more of a cohesive community to that work rather than just further deterioration. So I think when we dialogue, we are embodying the kind of people we're hoping to see in our communities and in our leaders. We're practicing that kind of character, and we're also modeling that for the future. And that sounds real, so, I get it, like cue the Whitney Houston music or whatever, but like, it's very real, because even if it's on a micro community basis, it moves us out of so many of us feeling helpless and hopeless into a place of agency and equipment and equipping. So I think that this couldn't be a more important time for what we're doing. And that's my soapbox.
I love that. I think there's two parts of this. And I think the first part people need to get through. So the second part is, I think, what you're providing, which is the tools.
Yes.
I think the first part that I have seen some people struggle with on social media or in real life, and this is religious or politics, there's becoming more of a separation of like men and women and feminism or misogyny. That's kind of taking front stage a little bit recently. And of course, race and class, but you name it all.
Yeah.
But what I'm noticing is some people are going, let's just call it politics to make it easier. There's just two sides of that, right? I don't have to go into more. But if someone says, I'm Democrat or I'm Republican, conservative or liberal, someone else, either on social media or in real life and family, and I see people going on podcasts and saying these things, they don't want anything to do with the other. They don't even want to be in the same room as the other person. And so you're giving the tools. I think we also need to start with the mindset. And I'll just tell you, I have family members that think very differently than me. And I've had some outsiders say, why would you let your children around those types of ideas? And I said, they're going to be exposed someday. Why would I not try and give them better tools and ideas and just really think about what those people are saying? I'd rather have a little bit of guidance while they're being exposed to that versus put them out in the world and put them in a bubble and then put them out in the world later. And then that's first. And then second, I tell my children all the time, you're starting to sound like me, but just know mom can be wrong. And I say that mom's not wrong about what time to turn off the TV, but mom can be wrong on who I believe the right political candidate is.
Sure.
Mom can be wrong on my beliefs on religion. I try and tell them that because I don't think children hear enough that your parent might not have all the facts. And that's a hard line to walk because you want your kids to respect you and to believe in you.
Sure.
But at the same time, I want them to become critical thinkers.
Yes. And I hear you teaching them humility. Have an opinion, advocate for the things that you believe in, and also know that we all are wrong sometimes. And being able to carry ourselves in the world where we work with conviction, but a humble conviction is very different than I'm totally right all the time. I'm not under construction. You're under construction.
They know I'm confident in my opinions.
Right. They're not missing that part, which is great.
But I just share with them because they'll see other families where they see that those families think differently. And I'm like, I don't think they're wrong. I don't know if I'm right. But these are my thoughts.
Yeah.
Okay, I could go on forever. And this is so great. I know you went through kind of those programs, the dialogues, the workshops, the program for the experiments. Is that right? I know you have some statistics that you could share.
Some of the numbers that I'm excited about with TCL is that we have facilitated over 500 dialogues. I've done a lot more than that personally, but we know at least 500 that has been official with TCL. We've worked with over 16 faith traditions. We have a really rich diversity of those perspectives that come in, which is so nice to have that degree of diversity. We have hundreds of people at this point over 12 years who have supported us, trained with us, worked with us, dialogued with us, gone through cohorts with us. And we are a really small but mighty organization. We're super grassroots. If we were some kind of international corporation or something, maybe these numbers would be small, but we're pounding the pavement.
Talking about grassroots and pounding the pavement, y'all have a really small team.
Yeah, it's one full-time, one half-time, one very part-time, like 7 hours a month bookkeeper. And then we have 8 volunteer board members who do incredible, passionate volunteer work. And that's who's running the whole operation.
Yeah, but you'll have quite a few partnerships. You're collaborating with other organizations, correct?
Yes, we've really been honored to work with a lot of different organizations over time. Texas Impact did work with us throughout the pandemic so we could reach faith communities, trying to resource their communities. We've worked with a lot of higher ed institutions, whether it's just a guest lecturer at UT Austin. I've been at a lot of seminaries lately, Isla School of Theology, Seminary of the Southwest, Austin Presbyterian Theological Seminary. We've worked with Leadership Austin this year, which has been wonderful. So it's really great to get to come into those environments and say, okay, how can we give leaders across industries in Austin these tools too? One or two other things. This sounds strange perhaps, but we're really proud of our open rate on our MailChimps because we try to be resourcing our communities as much as possible. So we have an open rate of 51%, which is way higher than the nonprofit average for getting a MailChimp. We try not to be spam. We try to be giving people really meaningful resources at a time where it can be so easy to be discouraged.
That seems like a really high percentage because I don't open.
Right? Anything, right? I'm amazed at it myself, honestly.
Yeah, that's
But
great.
talk about humbling. But it also speaks to the need, also speaks to what people are wondering about. And then we have an 80% donor retention rate. And I'm really proud of that one because, again, we're tiny, we're grassroots, but donors who give with us know that they're a genuine partner. They're a part of our community. We treat them as part of our community. They're not just writing checks. They know that every single penny makes a really direct impact in what we're doing. And we work hard to let them know that and how that plays out. And they know that we're being really careful in how we steward and sustain that money. We're super strategic. We joke that every single dollar, we're like, okay, what is the best possible way to serve our mission. And we're really proud of all of those numbers.
We've said on the show, nonprofits have to be more strategic than for-profit companies. I mean,
true.
they are working on a shoestring budget and they have to make a lot more impact. And you can't always measure the impact. These numbers, I always ask for this impact report, but even if you were serving people or dogs or children, you're only touching the tip of the iceberg with those
There are
numbers.
ripple effects among quantitative and qualitative metrics for the kind of work we do and that so many nonprofits do. It's about the qualitative metrics. We could tell stories all day till the cows come home. That doesn't necessarily make for a good graph or chart, but it's lives changed.
Why don't we talk about stories?
Speaking of,
You are living day in and day out. You are experiencing stories. Some of our nonprofits don't actually get to really have that face-to-face time with the people that they're serving, right? Maybe they're dropping off food. Maybe they're doing something that's a little bit more distant. It's a huge impact, but they don't have as many stories. But you are in these conversations and you are seeing the growth.
yeah, that's the part of being small but mighty, is that this is all very direct. I think there was a question in the prep about overhead, and it was like, what overhead?
Yeah.
So much of this is very direct. I did want to make a comment that relates to the whole thing, but especially some of what we were discussing earlier around dialogue that pertains to these story themes as well, which is a lot of folks have questions about where's the line of who we will still interact with and who we won't, and how does that play out? And those are questions everybody has to think about, boundaries and what's good for children and all those good things. One piece of encouragement, or perhaps a challenge I like to pose to people, is if we are working, whether from the left or the right or some other category, if we are working for a world where we're giving kindness and dignity to everyone, whether that's informed by our faith or our politics or fill in the blank, most of us are interested in that. The challenge is to then work for kindness and dignity for all by giving kindness and dignity to the people that are hardest for us to give it to. Sometimes that means to the people who are withholding it from us. And again, we don't have enough time. This would be more for trainings and workshops to go into the discernment around that, because we want to also make sure that we're safe. But for many of us, pushing ourselves to give dignity to folks that we're really mad at is part of advancing our own cause. That said, there was a dialogue I facilitated some years ago on abortion. And when I facilitate on really controversial topics, it's the only time that new people are not allowed, because the folks coming to talk about something really high stakes need to have already practiced with those tools and built some trust. I know that people are ready for a really tough dialogue when they care more about hurting everyone else's feelings in the room than defending their own cause. So it took a while. I had some requests to talk about abortion, and they were very patient. And eventually I said, okay, let's do it. We're ready. So let's say there's a group of, I don't remember precisely, maybe 7 or 8 people who came. That's the ideal number of our dialogues. One of the people who came volunteered at a pregnancy crisis center and was an activist for pro-life causes. Another person who came, who had dialogued a lot with this person I just mentioned, was on the board of NARAL, loved Planned Parenthood, was a huge activist for pro-choice causes. Now everybody comes in. Remember, they've actually pursued real friendships with each other, but they've never crossed this issue. And everyone's so nervous, they're like shaking. It was really unusual for them. By the time we get through the dialogue, these 2 individuals I'm talking about immediately stood up and embraced each other, like long form hugging. Around that time, they were starting to see each other a lot out of the dialogue room, at rallies, at the Capitol. Even once they had a story where one of them was like protesting over an overpass and the other one was like driving under, and they saw each other.
So they are both showing up to these protests on
Yes.
on opposite sides.
On opposite sides. And let me tell you, this always moves me. One of them started saying, and says to this day, when I'm out at the rallies and I see the opposing side, I picture the face of my dialoguer friends, because I love them truly. And if I can love them, then I can love everybody else staring back at me who's fighting against my cause. And that changes the way this person shows up as an activist. It changes the way this person builds community, not at the cost of their cause, but at the cost of the way they're embodying the world they wish to build. This is not on my list, but I had a trans friend who during the Texas legislative session this year who has done some of our trainings, but this was not because of our trainings. I'd love to take credit. There was a family who kept showing up to session who was testifying against my friend's cause related to trans youth. And this person quietly and consistently noticing that this family who was opposing them, noticing that they were always very nervous. They were traveling in from out of town. This was a very unfamiliar, I'm sure, intimidating environment for them. And this friend, away from cameras, away from journalists, would just go and chat with them and show them some kindness. And on the last day of testimony, that family sought out my trans friend whose cause they were working against. Deeply painful. Right. And they thanked them and they all shared a hug before they went on their way.
It's beautiful. There's very few commercials that have moved me. Have you seen the beer commercial where they bring two people? It's like 4 or 5 sets of people, and it's just 2 people at a time that go into this room and they give them instructions to build something together.
That's
and
so
one
interesting.
was a trans person and one was someone who didn't agree with
Yes.
anyone being trans.
Yes.
And they had another where it was similar, where it was like a very strong feminist. And so they paired these people that thought differently politically and thought differently. And wow, just building something together while chatting. And then after they built it, they sat on the chairs and they watched a video of each of them being interviewed about the topic that bothered the other person.
I have seen this.
Isn't that so good?
It's so good. And if you'll allow me to be nerdy,
Yes.
in peace building, we call this complexifying. Instead of reducing a human being to some cartoon villain, we are mad at them, we hate them, we don't talk to them because they hate us. Instead of making them 2D, we complexify them. We let them be fully human. We let it be messy and we let it be complicated because that's who we are too. And when we allow that to be reality, because it is reality, then we actually can start to make progress. It's hard to be patient with that because it takes time. Many people are like, there's no time for talk. This is urgent. And what I often say is, yes, it's urgent and it takes a long time to do this well. So we better get started now because of the time it takes, right? It takes sitting down with someone who you fear, who you're mad at, and to find a way to laugh together. This is a really serious topic I've dedicated my life to, or industry or livelihood, we could say, right? Dialogue. But the truth is, my job every single day is full of laughter. When people do humanize each other, they learn to cut up with each other. They start to feel comfortable. There's a lot of giggling that goes on in our dialogues, in our cohorts, in our trainings, because when people start to read the signals that they can be themselves, it opens up a whole different type of atmosphere, right?
Laughter connects us, right?
Big time.
Yeah.
Yes, cause and effect.
I also interviewed Louder Than Silence.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But she was talking about how it's such a serious topic and how much they laugh. That you would never
Absolutely.
realize in such a serious room.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so glad you interviewed that. Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, I loved both of those stories. Didn't mean to bring up like a commercial afterwards, but I really, there's very few commercials that move you. And it was to the point where I think it was probably a foreign commercial because I saw it through social media or something.
Sure.
But watching that just reminded me of both those beautiful stories of the
Absolutely.
testimony with against the transgender person, your friend, you know, being kind to them, showing kindness
Yes.
despite the tough situation.
Yes.
And then the pro-choice and pro-life, that's been a really hot topic lately. And when you meet people, you don't actually know what side of the fence they're on every topic. I love that what you're doing is building tools to approach those topics, or if they do come up, to be able to discuss them in a productive manner.
Yeah. And you know, it takes time. Sometimes dialogue just feels like a fun conversation because sometimes a fun conversation is what ultimately helps move the needle. We oftentimes talk about dialogue as it's not a session, it's a long period of time, right? We put an ellipses at the end of every session saying, over time, we're building something, and one session may not feel like we finished building it. But when you look back after some weeks or some months, you go, oh, wow, we've really done something together here.
Yeah. You know what's interesting is my dad and I were very close, but we think very differently on things. But over the past, probably, it's been over 10 years, maybe 15 years, I feel like the whole time I've been like, oh, I'm just chipping away at him. He's going to see my side. And so what the funny thing is I chip away, and I think, okay, I'm getting to him. He's leaning more into, I understand gay marriage more, these types of things. And I'm like, great, I'm doing all this. And the whole way through, I do a look back and I'm like, he's chipping away at me too.
Yes.
Like,
yes, exactly. Exactly.
It's funny because I'm coming in every conversation to go, how can I chip away more? And I look back and I know for a fact that he's opening my eyes to things that I wouldn't have seen without our conversation.
Absolutely. And that's the thing. Essentially what you're describing is like the only difference would be in coming into a dialogue room is that we name it as we're getting started. I'm here for y'all to help me learn something. When everybody sees it that way, then everyone ends up having a voice, but it's an invited voice rather than I got to find a way to get my viewpoint in somewhere so I can convince everyone. It's so many things in life. Working in a way that is countercultural actually gets us closer to the goal.
I get that. Okay, I love that. Now, okay, I do this to everyone. I make you do a good brag. The idea, I want listeners to eventually go brag about how they supported the church lab. It doesn't have to be a nonprofit, doesn't have to be volunteering or donating. It could be an act of kindness. It's just spreading the good, right? Is there anything that you'd like to share?
There are a few things. I don't know if they count. I'm going to try them anyway.
They'll count, I promise. Anything counts.
Okay. One is actually a brag about my board, and the other two, if it's required to be about me, the other two I think will count more. But my board makeup, which they essentially ultimately define, has leaned into being more diverse politically this year than they even have been in the last couple of years. This is a year when it's the most tempting to be like, why don't we just hang back a little bit? But we've got people who voted every which way, who see every which way, who have said, no, we want to embody what this mission is about. And so they're working in a unified manner. We just had our annual retreat, and after the business meetings, they would keep me up. And I'm very glad for this. They would stay up until late in the evening like they were teenagers, like laughing and talking. And they weren't ignoring their differences. They were learning about each other's. But it's so cool to me to look at my board of directors and say, wow, they're giving me hope in a way that almost nothing else can provide hope right now. It's beautiful to see them leaning into the work instead of giving into nerves about it. The other things I would say are we've been hitting a lot of milestones this year. We are alongside every nonprofit that's like in a very precarious financial situation. I'm sure we'll discuss that. But we are hitting milestones like we've never gotten to meet before in the ways we get to meet our mission. Like I'm getting to go talk to an international peace building conference in November in Spain with people from all over the world doing this work. I'm so honored. I have total imposter syndrome. I'm so excited to get to talk to people about building peace in Texas specifically, about all those threads we talked about.
I just wanted to stop for 1 second. I hear imposter syndrome so often.
I know. I have to work on it.
Do not do that to yourself. I am just trying to tell, because I hear it more from women. I do.
Of course, yes.
I don't know if that's just because these topics are coming up more with women, but this has come up from my past manager. I'm like, you're managing me and you're telling me you have imposter syndrome. It's so prevalent and it needs to stop because, look, there's some people in very high positions that should have imposter syndrome.
We should trade the syndrome.
Yeah, that's in the companies, whether that's in corporate life or whether that's in politics or whether that's in religion. It's across the board that I see people, I'm like, never imposter syndrome again.
That's very fair. That's very fair.
Okay, but keep going.
It's a huge leap. And I did go to the founder of that organization and was like, wow, thank you for including even me. And she did the same thing. She was like, you competed with 300 and something people. We need to hear from you. And I'm just very excited to go learn from other people who are working in just so many different environments on a really key, timely cause. So the last one I'll say is that I'm on contract writing a book that hopefully will help spread our mission and help people with everyday kind of dialogue in their lives, formal, informal, one-on-one, group. And I'm on deadline right now. So it should release sometime next year. But if you're listening to this, and it's 2026, then
we'll put it on our story for sure, at least. We'll share it.
Sweet.
Congrats. That's so exciting to be invited. out of 300 people to write about. You're not giving yourself enough credit. It's hard to talk about yourself, isn't it?
Yes, this is the most challenging question.
It always is. Those are fantastic brags. I love them.
Oh, thank you.
And now I just want listeners to have chance for good bragging rights. How do they show up for the Church Lab? We know donate money. I want to throw that out there first because that is how you sustain your work.
Yes. And like I said before, I really believe our donor retention rate is so high because it is a meaningful experience. It's really clear when people donate that every single dollar, we're like, okay, this is precious. How can we maximize our impact with it? And like a lot of other folks, like I mentioned, this is just an unprecedented stormy season for nonprofits funding. We work really hard on sustainability. It's just extra tricky right now. So people who want to help, of course, I feel like a flight attendant when I say this, there are a lot of airlines you could, there are so many causes and so many wonderful people out there going, it's paralyzing how many different possibilities there are. But we often talk about, listen, if you're moved by this cause, if you hear this and you say, okay, yes, I am about this, then for us, pledges, monthly pledges for a year or two, sometimes 3 years, we'll ask people for 3 years at a time, just so we don't have to fundraise as much and just to help us stabilize. But monthly pledges help keep us stable and help us understand what's coming so we can create and hold to a budget carefully. But even one-time donations between October and December were with everybody else who's raising our budget for next year. And when December 31st hits, whatever pledges we have, that is our operational budget for the next year. And so this fall, if you're compelled by this and you want to donate at thechurchlab.org, or you want to share this message with anybody else, at the Church Lab is our handle for all the things. We try to make sure that even our social media right now just gives little tips and resources to people. And that's the other thing. You said, of course, donate. But the other thing, honestly, is if any of this, if anything I talked about today sounds like it could be helpful to you or someone you know or both, please share. Please. The easiest way to get involved, I mentioned that MailChimp earlier, that magically people open. The way to subscribe is at the bottom of any page of our website. So if you go to thechurchlab.org, you can just put your little email in, just like any other system like that. It's super easy. We don't abuse. We're not selling that information or anything. And then on Thursday mornings, you'll get a call for RSVPs to upcoming dialogues, to other things that we're doing, to our trainings, to our workshops. If it feels scary to do something like this, you can email me questions or ask to get on the phone or a Zoom to learn more. We also have a lot of people that the first time they come, they just observe, whether that's on Zoom or in the room. I'm speaking about dialogues. So if you're just like, I just want to see what it's like, this sounds intimidating, I don't know, just come and just say beforehand, I'm just going to observe. We do that all the time.
Donate, subscribe to the newsletter, and join. Is there volunteer opportunities? Is there anything people can do? Or is it really just getting to know you guys through these workshops or dialogues and then hopefully supporting in other ways?
That's really it. It's really that simple. Participate, share. If you find resources that are useful, please, if this is helpful to you or other people, share it, participate, invite people along, and hopefully give in a way that helps us sustain what we're doing.
Yeah. And we've had Piper Steggy Nelson from I Live Here, I Give Here on this show.
I love Piper.
She's
the best.
She's great. And she's joined us for some of our topics that matter at the beginning before the interview. So she's fantastic. And y'all have joined Amplify Austin. So if you want to donate before December 31st so that y'all can get it in the budget, but also show up for Amplify Austin.
Absolutely. We started participating 2 years ago, and it's a huge booster. We see what our budget numbers are, we get the year going, and then it's an amazing way for people to find out about us, for people to share. And it usually does give us a little bit of, oh, okay, maybe we can do one more project.
Yeah, and that's Amplify Austin. That happens every March in Austin. That's our biggest giving day. I think they raised almost $10 million last year, so it's brilliant.
It's so great.
Yeah. Okay. Carrie, thank you so much. This was such a fun conversation.
Thank you. It was an honor. I'm so glad to be invited. Thank you very much.
I loved hearing Reverend and Carrie share the dialogues happening at the Church Lab. Conversations on some of the most divisive topics in our country right now, from abortion to transgender rights. No matter where you stand, there should be a safe place for dialogue, listening, and understanding. That is what builds a community. And there has never been more of a need for this kind of space in my lifetime than today. So remember to not let the I can't make a difference mindset take hold. Showing up for dialogue, showing up for listening, showing up for understanding, it all matters. And the Church Lab is creating that opportunity right here in Austin. And here's how you can earn some good bragging rights and make a difference. Join a dialogue, check out their calendar, and pull up a chair at a conversation on meaning, spirituality, or community. Whoever you are, you're welcome there. Just visit thechurchlab.org and support their mission. Nonprofits, just like the Church Lab, depend on people who believe in their work. A monthly gift helps ensure that these conversations continue to have a home in Austin and continue to build bridges in our community. And just a reminder that the Texas Stars Foundation loves to give to those that give back. If you show up for a nonprofit, remember to share on your social media and use #GoodBrag. DM us at Escape Into a Cause and you'll be entered to win Texas Stars hockey tickets. Their season kicks off in October, and who doesn't want to be rewarded for doing a good thing? Safe spaces for dialogue don't just appear, they are built. And the Church Lab is building that safe space and equipping our community with the right tools right here in Central Texas. Next week, we're escaping into NAMI Central Texas, an incredible organization providing education support and advocacy for mental health in our community. You won't want to miss it. And with that, thank you Nightlight Insurance Agency for presenting Escape Into a Cause. Thank you to Todd Thompson for editing and mixing, Graham Thompson and Jaden Dyer for the music, Corey McCain at Just Push Record Studios, and Ashlyn O'Neill for digital content. We hope to see you next week as we escape into a cause.